Welcome in, listener. You're listening to a segment from the Slumpbuster podcast with Ju-Ju and Dre. Find the full episode on Spotify, iTunes, the Google Play Store, or our YouTube channel. Enjoy.
All right. Well, speaking of striking out, so Tim Tebow on First Take was so defensive this week because the NCAA went to war with California over the Fair Pay to Play Act that just was passed through the California State Senate. Right now, this is currently sitting in their government still. It's going to be 30 days for their governor, Gavin Newsom, to make a decision on whether or not to sign this bill. What this would basically allow is for players to be able to benefit from their name, from their likeness. So basically, when it comes to stuff like the NCAA games or jersey sales or stuff like that, players actually have a chance to make a buck now. It's a very heated discussion. A lot of people are definitely going to be on the anti-NCAA side. Where are you guys kind of sitting with this argument?
Pro pay the players. Yes, they're getting paid in education. Yes, it's an unbelievable opportunity for them. But the schools and the NCAA both are raking in millions and billions of dollars on the backs of these players. Was it 2% only goes pro level in football, less than that in basketball. So pay the players. They deserve it. Maybe if you don't give them a weekly or a big check, maybe put it in a trust for them for when they graduate their college career. But I'm definitely pro pay the players.
Yeah, I'm the exact same way. I think the thing is, right, so there's quite a bit, and everybody says, oh, you know, these players are getting paid to go to school and they get their school paid for and all this stuff. And granted, like a lot of student athletes do get treated better than even some of your academic students that are just on a full ride just for academics, right? But when you look at it, though, there's really only 4 sports that offer full ride. So you got football, basketball, women's basketball, and women's volleyball. Those are the only real 4 sports that offer full ride. And only 1% of athletes really get that full ride scholarship. So the majority, so 99% of your athletes that are competing at the college level, especially the D1 level, they're not getting everything covered, right? So why not allow them to make some money? Because a lot of times they're not able to work anyways. Like sometimes they sign agreements in which they say, hey, I'm not going to have a summer job just so I can make summer workouts, right? I'm not going to do anything that could possibly jeopardize my amateur status. And so a lot of these guys go without making that much money. And when you grow up from being poor, which a lot of these athletes are, they don't have a chance to really cover the rest of their schooling, especially if you're going to an expensive school. Like we'll talk about a USC or UCLA where tuition's $50,000 or something a semester or a year. But if you're growing up and your mom is a single mother and she only makes $20,000 a year, there's no way you're going to be able to afford that.
Well, that's definitely true. Definitely when you come from a perspective of these players aren't necessarily coming from the best backgrounds right now. They definitely have a finite amount of time to realistically make any money. And a lot of these guys, like you mentioned, only 2% of them go to the pro level. So the other 98% may never really have a great opportunity to earn outside of necessarily their community, maybe becoming a insurance salesman just based off kind of like being a local hero or something later on. So these guys really need to take advantage of their time and their platform while they're at the collegiate level, especially if they're playing for like a big name school like a USC or a Stanford or UCLA, you name it. So a lot of the pushback that's coming from the NCAA is going to come in regards to competitive balance. Now, one of the big arguments you can throw out there off the bat is there really competitive balance anyway in the NCAA football right now? Because we're talking about potentially seeing Clemson versus Alabama episode 5 coming up here soon. What do you think this kind of does to change the landscape of college football?
Well, we got to look at it this way. So this is just a California bill right now. So it's only going to affect California schools. Has the Pac-12 really done anything recently? No. They're going to still go to the big name schools. If you wanted to go to California, you're still going to try to go to California. If you're only getting recruited from SEC schools, you're still going to get recruited from California schools. So I don't think this is going to affect it much. Maybe instead of going to Miami, you go to USC, but then you lose out on the opportunity to go for a national championship.
Well, I'll say with social media, we're more connected to other parts of the country than we never really have been before. So like players in terms of recruiting, these coaches have more outreach than they've really had in past generations. When it comes to this law in particular, and the players are making a decision on where to go for college, wouldn't kind of the thought process go, well, I could go to Alabama and arguably be with the best coach in the country in Nick Saban, or Clemson with the Debo Samuel, or I could go to California right now and get paid, especially when talking about those high-end college athletes, those 4-star, 5-star recruits. Wouldn't they want to head to the best opportunity for them to make the money now?
I was thinking about this a little bit, and you're right. I think the only ones that would really be attracted to it would be your high-end quarterbacks and your really big receivers, right? Like even your really good defensive players, they're not that well known. I mean, some of them, right? Like you've had Troy Polamalu's, right? And you've got a few other like really good like linebackers or safeties that you're like, okay, or corners, right? That you're like, oh yeah, I'd buy that person's jersey. But for the most part, it's really only going to affect like your really good offensive players when it comes to most sports, right? Even in basketball, not a lot of people are known for like, hey, they play good defense, right? So I'm going to buy their jersey. It's more, hey, are they a superstar? So I think California might be able to attract some superstars, but for the most part, right, like when you're building a team, you're not going to be able to build a team of all 4 or 5-star recruits. And those guys that are not your 5-star recruits that are, you know, an offensive talent, they're not really going to get that many endorsements, right? Like I am not going to buy, let's say, you know, the left guard's jersey for UCLA, right? Or even the center's jersey for UCLA. I might buy the quarterbacks though, and I might buy a pair of cleats that the quarterback is wearing. So I think it might attract some of those really, really good high-level talents, but I don't think it'll be enough to really outweigh, like Aris is saying, the Alabamas and the Clemsons that have a history of winning.
But in terms of competitive balance, those high-end quarterbacks, they shift the entire landscape more than any other player or any other position. In general, with the kind of advancements in the offensive passing attack that have come at both the college and pro level, that's really where it matters right now. I know that there has been Alabama has made a living off of all these high-end defensive players, but if you can steal some of those flash players, let's say Trevor Lawrence, instead of going to Clemson, goes to USC, then that really changes everything in correlation to the Pac-12. You make USC like a favorite consistently.
Would you rather play for Chip Kelly or Dabo? Which coach would give you right now the best opportunity to go to the NFL? Chip Kelly at UCLA or Dabo at Clemson?
When it comes to that argument between Dabo or Chip Kelly, we're talking about the infusion of the almighty dollar into this argument. And in most debates, especially in a capitalistic society, the dollar tends to win out when making these life-changing decisions, whether where to go to college or where to work or where to move, etc.
I see what you're saying. I just feel like you're still going to want to go to a coach that gives you a better opportunity to make it to the pros, where instead of making, say $200,000 in 4 years, you can make $1 million in 1 year at the NFL level. So I still think you're still going to have the parity. The bill negates any college team in California from participating in championship games. So now you can't win a national championship under this bill. So if you want to have that record, say, oh, I won 4 national championships in a row, are you going to go to UCLA, USC, Stanford, or are you going to try to go to a school where you can actually compete for a national championship?
Well, what I'm saying is in a few years, wouldn't it be possible that these teams are competing for national championship because they're able to recruit the best players by adding this little extra incentive on top of it? One thing, too, I feel like this kind of underrated in talking about this argument. So there's the underground booster society when it comes to these southern schools. Like we all know that players have been getting money under the table. We joke about it all the time. Honestly, though, it's kind of funny when you think about this, because when it comes to endorsement money and all that, this is money that the players have to actually report out there to their local governments, whereas the underground money can be a little bit more shady on the underside. So would that also be kind of something you have to weigh? Is it necessarily a net benefit from that perspective?
I think anytime that you have, right, these weird underground economies, it sort of halts the, I guess, legitimate economies, right? And so I guess the point you were trying to make earlier, right, that, people might go to California, it might actually not do them all that well if Alabama and Clemson maybe are paying their kids under the table. But, I mean, I think this is another reason for why they should, I think, legalize or put this in the law, I think, nationwide, It's just because we do know that it's already happening, right? And we do know that kids are either receiving, monetary reimbursement or something equivalent, right? Like they're getting a nice car that's paid for, they're getting a nice house and stuff like that. I think kids will still want to be sponsored because at least it gets their name out there, and it, you start to build a reputation, and you already are officially signed with Nike or whoever it is. But that being said, like, I think there is something to the underground economy, and I think it actually does take away a little bit of power from this California law.
See, and I think we keep going back to the football part of this. I think this will have a bigger impact on the basketball side. We already saw it with Arizona State paying to have players come to them. Now they can actually pay players to come play at UCLA, Stanford, UC Berkeley, San Diego State, all those schools. We already saw it with basketball. I think this is going to have the biggest effect because now Zion Williamson can sign his shoe deal 1 year before going into the NBA. There's going to be even bigger deals thrown around now. So I think that the basketball side is going to have a bigger impact on this than the football side will.
Well, there's going to be a trickle down into all major sports that are coming out of the college game. So you mentioned, Aundre, that only a few of these sports can benefit from a full ride scholarship per se. So when we're talking about this argument too, a lot of things people don't really mention is, so we mostly focus on the football, basketball side of things because those are the most revenue generating sports. However, things that's kind of lost in this argument is how do athletes in volleyball, wrestling, track and field, swimming, and all this feel about this law in general? I'm kind of actually glad too that it's just in endorsements right now, because I don't know if a lot of people have really factored in what it would take for the universities themselves to pay out these athletes. And I feel like too, some of those smaller sport athletes might also feel like they're getting the shaft in this whole thing.
Well, yeah. So like swimming is going to be able to get their own endorsement with Speedo. Wrestling is going to be able to get endorsements through headgear and shoes. So I think those schools, like those sports, will actually be able to benefit from this as well because they're going to get sponsorships centric to their sport, whereas they might not get the Nike, Adidas, Reebok, Under Armour deal. They might be able to get those smaller niche deals that have to deal with their actual sport.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I think, so a few things I want to touch on, Ju-Ju, that you had sort of mentioned, right, is to make it clear, this is not the NCAA that's actually paying these athletes, right? So it's not like the schools themselves are, handing a $100,000 check to the starting whatever, right? Starting quarterback, starting point guard, anything like that. It is, they're just able to make money off endorsements, which I do think is the way that it should be, because then you get into these disparity issues of, maybe like you had mentioned, the soccer players don't get paid as much as the football players or the basketball players. So I am glad that it is just endorsements right now. That being said, for these small time sports, college a lot of times is sort of the epitome for them. So we know that there's like the MLB, right, NHL, NBA, NFL. But for a lot of these sports, there really is just the college level. And then after that, there's maybe a chance to compete in the Olympics, but they don't really have like that much of a pro following. And so for a lot of these guys and girls, right, I think it's going to be a great opportunity. And this will be sort of their level of pros as they work, their entire life to get up to the college level. And that's where they get to make their money, because after college, there's no real opportunity for a lot of your track runners, right? Like there's not really a professional league for running track, or even for wrestling. If you don't win a gold medal in the Olympics, you're not going to really get paid out appropriately, right? Like you're not going to ever make millions of dollars. And so for these small time sports, right, your sort of niche sports, I think it's a fantastic thing.
Aundre, quick question. As a wrestler, would you rather make $100,000 or win a national championship?
So, I mean, I think wrestling is slightly different in that if you're good enough to win a national championship as an individual, right, you can do it wherever. And so you might give up on possibly a team championship, right? So if you're not going to a Penn State or an Oklahoma State or an Iowa, which are historically the dominant powers, yeah, you probably will not win a team championship, but you can just as well win an individual championship at UCLA, which doesn't have a wrestling team, but I'm just saying that for example, right? So I guess it would be more of a Stanford that has a team. And for me, like, I think that might be the way to do it. Yeah, it's nice to win as a team, But if I can get paid and prove that I'm still the best on my own, right, and I'm making $100,000, I think I personally would take that route.
No, so this bill won't allow you to compete in any national championship title. So then you'd have to choose, go to
That's true.
Pittsburgh or go to UCLA or Stanford, as you said.
Yeah. Well, I guess we will say something. So I think you're right. I think that's what it's going to end up happening. Though I think that's only a threat from the NCAA right now. I don't know if the NCAA has made that official that you would be ruled out.
Just to clarify and make that clear, so basically what Aris is referring to is the NCAA right now is trying to strong-arm the California state government by saying that they would rule out a lot of their schools from competing for national titles moving forward if this bill does pass. Aris, you were telling us that fact about USC's history in regards to national championships. If you want to.
Yeah, so California has 4 of the top 10 schools with Division I titles. So since D1 NCAA has been a thing, they have 4 of the top 10 schools with the most titles. Stanford at number 1 with 647. So that is team plus individual. So you might get a swimming record or a swimming division title or a football championship. Then you come to USC, then comes Texas, back to UCLA, and then Florida. So they have 3 in the top 10. And then at number 8 is UC Berkeley. So now all of those schools aren't allowed, if NCAA does go through with this, aren't allowed to compete for national titles. So now Stanford, number 1 school in D1 history for titles, is no longer allowed to compete for a title. So now as somebody who is a swimming superstar, are they going to want to still go to Stanford, where maybe they have the number 3 swimming program in the nation, or are they going to want to go to UNLV just outside of California? Are they going to want to go to there if they have the best and they want to compete for a national title? So that's where I think you're still going to get those people that, they want to prove that they're the best rather than get paid. You're still going to get that parity throughout the nation.
Yeah, I could see sort of your point right there. That being said, though, I think for a lot of those sports that we're talking about outside of your major team sports, right, there's the chance to do that at the Olympic level. And so if you really think that you're the best, right, doesn't matter if you're the best diver and you win an NCAA championship, when you can make a whole bunch of money and then you also get to train for the Olympics and prove that you're the best in the world, right? So if you really do think you're at that sort of level, I still think a lot of people would err on the side of, I might as well make my money now. The other thing too is, and this is the argument for, should they allow, kids right out of high school to compete in the NBA, or, should they reduce the amount of time that you have to spend in college to go into the NFL? Because every single year that you're in college, you're adding, more and more risk to your body, right? So there's a chance that you tear your ACL, right, your freshman year. But if you can make it through your freshman year, well, now there's a chance you do it your sophomore year and your junior year. So the longer that you stay in college, the more and more you risk never being able to have that big payday. And so to me, you might as well make your hundreds of thousands of dollars while you can and still get in some good competition to prove that, hey, I can still compete at the pro level, right, doing it at a UCLA or wherever, but I'm still getting paid. Whereas, hey, I can prove that I'm really good at UNLV or wherever it is, but then that you run the risk of getting hurt and then you never get that big payday.
Yeah, that's definitely something that a lot of these athletes have to consider when it comes to their decisions on where to go to school. Like we said, there's a 30-day signing period when it comes to Governor Newsom's decision on this thing. One of the biggest opponents of this deal is Tim Tebow. He was on First Take the other day, said a lot of similar stuff we've heard before from the NCAA in regards to this subject. He mentioned his personal experiences, such as being one of the highest selling jerseys in the nation and not wanting the money. What did you kind of take away from Tim Tebow's interview? Did you agree with anything he said?
He said that it could ruin amateurism. We still don't know how this will play out. I personally think there's still going to be that parity where you're still going to get the spread around schools. But he's saying that, nope, the kids from impoverished situations are going to go to the schools that are going to be paying, and then you're not going to get that team quality. You're going to get that me quality, which can ruin locker rooms. We've seen it at the pro level when people stop buying into the team and start buying into just themselves. he made a very passionate plea. A lot of people are coming at him, saying that he's pulling the race card and he doesn't know what it's like, yada, yada, yada. But I see where he's coming from, but I think he's going to be on the wrong side of this argument. He just sees it a different way. He sees it as the team. He sees it as we don't need to pay. We don't need to get paid. We're doing this because we love it, and we're still grinding to the NFL. Whereas if we get paid now, we might not push as hard to get to the NFL. So I see where he's coming from. I just think he's on the wrong side of it.
Yeah, I totally agree. I think from listening to his interview, I think he was also a little bit misguided because he did say, oh, kids are only going to go to the places that are going to pay them the most, right? And so, yeah, like California right now is the only spot that is paying, right? But again, it's not the schools that are handing out the money, right? So it's not like somebody's going to actually get offered more necessarily, right, for playing any one place. And so if they're a really good quarterback, right, they're going to get endorsement offers, not necessarily the teams that have the most money. And I think he tried to make that argument of, oh, it'll be the teams that have the most money is where kids will go. It's not necessarily true in that respect. The other thing is, Tim Tebow was talking about the passion behind college sports. I think that passion's always going to be there. Like everybody's still proud of their school. You're going to see the stadiums are going to be packed. Might there be some slight decrease in the quality of play? Possibly. But I think for the most part, you're still going to see that passion. You're still going to have the crazy, fanatic, fans that are tailgating and painting their bodies, whatever their team color is. So I think Tim Tebow, I get sort of where he's coming from, but at the same time, I don't agree with a lot of his arguments.
My last statement on this is we're one step closer to NCAA football coming back for PlayStation, Xbox, or whatever. I cannot wait to play the mascot mode again. That was the best part of having the college football game. This is just one step to getting back to that. So if you're a gamer, you want to get behind this, but I just like that arm of the argument here.
Yeah, no, I definitely like that. I mean, I guess, so I know we're wrapping up on this segment. The one last thing that I'll add is so I totally agree that we should, lighten up on Tebow. He's a great guy. And, from all accounts and everything I've heard, he's a fantastic human being. The other thing that I had a problem, though, with what he mentioned, though, is he said, you should be loyal to your team. You should be loyal to the school. But one of the problems I see, though, is that the schools aren't loyal to the players, right? If you tear your ACL, it's like they might pay for insurance and help you get treated. But outside of that, like if your career is over, they 100% will replace you at whatever position you're at, or they'll always recruit over you. So you could be the number one recruit at quarterback. Your school's not loyal to you. They're going to be trying to get a Jalen Hurst, right, and a Tua and whoever else. If they can recruit, 5 superior quarterbacks, they're going to do it. And so part of the argument that Tebow is trying to make is, hey, these guys need to be loyal to their school. That should be their pride. But the school's not loyal to them. And 100%, you could be the best quarterback in the country, and they're still going to recruit another quarterback that they think might replace you, in week 2.